Today the US Army has no shortage of lethal weapons. Some of them are expensive. Some of them are very complex. Others are praised by politicians or defense contractors. However, not all of the weapons in the US Army's inventory are desired by the troops in the field. Here's the US Army's 5 most lethal weapons of combat. Number 1. BOEING A64 Apache. The best weapon in the US Army inventory is the Apache helicopter. It might sound ironic that an aircraft is the best weapon of the land forces. However, air power is the most decisive factor in the conflicts where the US military has recently fought. Most likely that the A64 Apache and its variants will remain the most decisive factor on the battlefield for many years to come. This deadly helicopter is armed with a 30mm cannon, Hellfire missiles and state-of-the-art sensors. This machine has the firepower, speed and range to hit the enemies long before the contact with the US ground troops. The Apache helicopter proved itself well during the Operation Desert Storm and recent wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. This machine can easily destroy armored columns or hunt down insurgents. The US ground troops can call in their own air support. They do not have to rely on the US Air Force or the US Navy aircraft. And the ground troops appreciate the support the Apache can provide. Number 2. M1 Abrams. The M1 Abrams is a third-generation American main battle tank designed by Chrysler Defense, now General Dynamics Land Systems. Conceived for modern armored ground warfare and now one of the heaviest tanks in service at nearly 68 short tons, almost 62 metric tons, it introduced several innovative features, including a multi-fuel turbine engine, sophisticated Chobham composite armor, a computer fire control system, separate ammunition storage in a blowout compartment, and NBC protection for crew safety. The M1 Abrams was developed from the failure of the MBT-70 project to replace the obsolescent M60 Patton. There are 3 main operational Abrams versions, the M1, M1A1, and M1A2, with each new iteration seeing improvements in armament, protection, and electronics. Efforts to develop an M1A3 version were first publicly disclosed in 2009. The M1 Abrams entered service in 1980 and currently serves as the main battle tank of the United States Army and Marine Corps. The export version is used by the armies of Egypt, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Australia, and Iraq. The Abrams was first used in combat in the Persian Gulf War and has seen combat in both the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, war under US service, while Iraqi Abrams tanks have seen action in the war against ISIL and have seen use by Saudi Arabia during the Yemeni civil war. It is planned that the Abrams tanks will remain in service with the US Army beyond 2050. Number 3. M109A6 Paladin. Paladin M109A6 is a cannon artillery system developed by the Ground System Division of United Defense LP and manufactured at the Paladin Production Operations Center at Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. The Paladin is the current version of the venerable M109 self-propelled howitzer. The original M109 was adopted by the US Army in the early 1960s. It saw its combat debut during the war in Vietnam. It was used during the Gulf War and during recent wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Paladin artillery system is operated by a crew of 4, a commander, driver, gunner and loader. Paladin is able to operate independently with no external technical assistance. The crew are able to receive mission data via a secure voice and digital communications system, compute the firing data, automatically unlock the cannon from the travel lock, point the cannon and fire, and move to a new location without external technical assistance. The 39 caliber 155mm M284 cannon, which is fitted with an M1A2 gun mount, has a range of 24 kilometers using unassisted rounds or 30 kilometers using assisted rounds. The projectile loading can be carried out using the full-stroke hydraulic system, or a semi-automatic loading system is optional. The vehicle's inertial positioning and navigation system is integrated with the automatic fire control system. The upgrade will retain the main armament and cab structure, but replace the chassis. The engine and transmission will be replaced with a Cummins 600 horsepower diesel engine and 3-liter HMPT 500 automatic transmission, also fitted on the Bradley fighting vehicle. It will have a new automated loader, electric gun drive, in common with the future combat system's non-line-of-sight cannon, and air conditioning powered by BAE Systems Common Modular Power System, CMPS. Number 4. TOW Anti-Tank Guided Missile. Even though Russians seem to be the kings in anti-tank missiles, it is easy to forget that the USA is not a loser either. The TOW Anti-Tank Guided Missile is still strong after nearly 45 years of service. It proved itself a very effective weapon. The TOW has destroyed many tanks, mostly Russian. It was used during the war in Vietnam. TOW anti-tank was developed by Hughes Aircraft between 1963 and 1968. The XBG M109A was designed for both ground and heliborne applications. In 1997, Raytheon Company purchased Hughes Electronics from General Motors Corporation, so development and production of TOW systems now comes under the Raytheon brand. The TOW missiles are typically used by separate anti-tank companies for heavy anti-armor work. But once this missile hits, it can knock out even the most protected enemy tanks. The TOW missiles are carried by a number of U.S. Army vehicles, such as the HMMWB, M2 and M3 Bradleys. Also, the Army has an M1134, a dedicated anti-tank missile carrier, based on the Stryker. Development of this anti-tank guided missile continues to this day, and new versions appear. There are top attack missiles that explode above the thin top armor of the tank. Also, there is a bunker-busting version of the TOW that is used against buildings and fortifications. Number 5. M2 Machine Gun. The M2 heavy machine gun or Browning .50 caliber machine gun is one of the Army's best weapons. It was designed by the famous John Browning towards the end of World War I. It entered service with the U.S. Armed Forces in 1933. The M2 has seen action during countless wars. Until recently, the M2HP was the standard infantry version that was also used on armored vehicles, tanks and helicopters. This remarkable weapon proved to be extremely successful. It is highly effective against infantry, unarmored or lightly armored vehicles, boats, light fortifications and helicopters. In terms of firepower, this heavy machine gun is closer to a small cannon. The M2 has varying cyclic rates of fire, depending on the model. The M2HP, heavy barrel, air-cooled ground gun, has a cyclical rate of 450 to 575 rounds per minute. The early M2 water-cooled AA guns had a cyclical rate of around 450 to 600 RPM. Even though it is more than 80 years old, the M2 is still in service with the U.S. Army. The M2A1 incorporates improvements to the design, including a quick-change barrel with removable carrying handle, a new slotted flash suppressor that reduces muzzle flash by 95%, fixed headspace and timing, a modified bolt, and a manual trigger block safety.